A U.S. military aircraft has gone down in western Iraq. It was not shot down, it was not hit by friendly fire, and yet the incident has triggered a frantic search and rescue mission in the middle of one of the most dangerous conflict zones in the world. The aircraft was a KC-135 refueling tanker, a critical piece of the U.S. military's air war capability. At the same time this plane disappeared from the skies, missiles were flying across the Middle East. Israeli cities were hit by rockets. Air raid sirens sounded at a major NATO base in Turkey. Drone attacks targeted Saudi Arabia. Oil prices surged above $100 per barrel. And across Iran, Lebanon, Iraq, and the Persian Gulf, the war is spreading in multiple directions. The question now being asked by analysts and diplomats alike is simple. Is this conflict still containable, or has the Middle East already entered the early stages of a much larger regional war? To understand the significance of this moment, we need to look at the broader conflict unfolding across the region. The current war began with escalating tensions between Israel, the United States, and Iran. For years, these three powers have been locked in a shadow conflict. That conflict has involved cyber attacks, covert operations, proxy militias, and targeted assassinations, but rarely has it erupted into direct military confrontation on this scale. Iran occupies a unique strategic position in the Middle East. It sits at the center of a vast network of regional alliances and proxy groups. These groups include Hezbollah in Lebanon, armed militias in Iraq, and the Houthis in Yemen. Together, they form what analysts often describe as the axis of resistance. This network allows Iran to project power far beyond its borders. Instead of fighting directly, Iran often relies on allied groups to challenge its adversaries. For Israel and the United States, this strategy presents a complicated challenge. Strikes against Iran can quickly trigger retaliation across multiple countries, military bases in Iraq, shipping lanes in the Persian Gulf, cities in Israel, energy infrastructure in Gulf states. All of these locations can suddenly become targets. Now, as the war enters its second week, those fears are beginning to materialize. Over the past 24 hours, several major developments have occurred across the region. One of the most mysterious incidents involves the crash of a KC-135 aerial refueling tanker in western Iraq. The KC-135 is not a combat aircraft, but it plays a vital role in modern warfare. These tankers allow fighter jets and bombers to refuel in midair, dramatically extending their range. Without them, long-distance air operations become much more difficult. U.S. Central Command confirmed that the aircraft went down in what it described as friendly airspace. According to American officials, the crash was not caused by hostile fire. It also was not the result of friendly fire. At least 3 crew members are required to operate the aircraft. However, officials say there may have been additional personnel on board. Search and rescue teams are currently trying to locate the crew. For now, details remain limited. Military officials say they want to notify the families of those involved before releasing more information, but the incident immediately sparked speculation. Iran-aligned militias in Iraq claimed responsibility for bringing down the aircraft. Those claims directly contradict the U.S. military statement. The truth may not become clear until investigators recover wreckage or flight data. At the same time, violence across the region has intensified dramatically. In northern Israel, a rocket strike on the town of Kiryat Tibon, near Haifa, injured around 80 people after a missile struck a building. Emergency services rushed to the scene as residents dealt with shattered glass, damaged homes, and fires caused by the impact. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, Israeli strikes have continued across several regions. In the Bekaa Valley, an Israeli attack on an apartment building killed 2 people and critically wounded 3 others. Among the victims were reportedly family members of a political figure associated with the Islamic group. Elsewhere in Beirut, Israeli drones targeted residential buildings in suburbs north of the capital. These strikes are part of Israel's ongoing campaign against Hezbollah. Hezbollah has been launching rockets into northern Israel in what it describes as retaliation for Israeli and U.S. attacks on Iran. Meanwhile, in Iran itself, the war continues to intensify. Airstrikes have been reported across multiple cities, including Tehran, Isfahan, Qum, Arak, and Kashan. Explosions and air defense activity have been heard across the Iranian capital. Oil storage depots hit in previous strikes are still burning. Smoke and pollution now hang over parts of the city. Large numbers of residents have begun leaving Tehran. Some neighborhoods are experiencing drone attacks targeting security facilities and militia bases. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says it has now launched its 44th wave of retaliatory missile strikes. These attacks have targeted Israeli cities and U.S. military bases across the region. At the same time, the conflict is spreading into the Gulf. Saudi Arabia says it has intercepted multiple waves of drones targeting areas near Riyadh and other regions. In Dubai, falling debris from an intercepted aerial attack caused damage to a building in the city center. In Bahrain, air raid sirens were activated as authorities warned residents to take shelter. Even a key NATO facility in Incirlik, Turkey, experienced alarm sirens overnight, though officials have not yet clarified the reason. And in Iraq, the conflict has already claimed the life of a European soldier. French President Emmanuel Macron confirmed that a French warrant officer was killed during a drone attack near a base in Erbil. Several other soldiers were wounded. The base was part of the international coalition fighting ISIS. Iran-aligned armed groups have claimed responsibility for attacks on several U.S. and coalition facilities in Iraq. Their message has been clear. These attacks are retaliation for the joint U.S.-Israeli campaign against Iran. These events matter not only because of the immediate violence, they matter because they reveal how quickly this conflict is expanding. First, the geographic spread of the war is remarkable. Fighting is now occurring simultaneously across Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, Israel, and the Gulf region. Very few modern conflicts have spread across so many countries so quickly. Second, the war is threatening critical global infrastructure. One of the most significant developments involves the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway is one of the most important energy choke points in the world. Roughly 1/5 of global oil supply normally passes through this route. Iran has effectively restricted traffic through the strait as part of its response to the war. The result has been immediate. Global oil prices have surged above $100 per barrel. Energy markets are now facing one of their largest disruptions in decades. Higher oil prices can trigger ripple effects across the global economy. Transportation becomes more expensive, manufacturing costs increase, food prices rise. Developing economies often suffer the most. Countries heavily dependent on imported energy may face severe financial strain. Third, the conflict is testing international alliances. U.S. forces are deployed across numerous bases in the Middle East. Many of these bases are located in countries that are now within range of Iranian missiles and drones. That means regional governments must balance two competing priorities: maintaining security cooperation with the United States and avoiding becoming targets themselves. Fourth, the war is beginning to generate political pressure inside the United States. More than 250 American organizations have called on Congress to halt funding for the war. They argue that the war is draining resources that could be used for domestic priorities. Some lawmakers have also raised concerns about civilian casualties in Iran. These debates could shape how long the United States is willing to remain involved in the conflict. Looking ahead, several possible scenarios could unfold. The first scenario is continued escalation. Iran could intensify missile attacks against Israeli cities and U.S. bases. Israel could expand its campaign deeper into Lebanon and Iran. In this situation, the conflict could gradually widen into a full regional war. The second scenario involves maritime confrontation. If the Strait of Hormuz remains disrupted, international naval forces may attempt to reopen the shipping route. That could bring U.S. and allied navies into direct confrontation with Iranian forces. Even a single miscalculation could trigger a major naval battle. The third scenario involves proxy warfare. Iran's regional allies could intensify attacks on U.S. and Israeli interests. This could include drone strikes on energy facilities, missile attacks on military bases, and cyber operations targeting infrastructure. The fourth scenario is diplomatic intervention. International mediators may attempt to broker ceasefires or limited agreements. However, diplomacy becomes much harder once multiple actors are engaged in active combat. Each side fears that showing weakness could invite further attacks. Finally, there is the risk of accidental escalation. The downed U.S. refueling aircraft in Iraq is a perfect example. Even if the crash was not caused by hostile fire, incidents like this can easily be misinterpreted. Misunderstandings during wartime have historically triggered much larger conflicts. Right now, the